man. You ready for this thing?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right.
Here we go.
All right, our first ever Corvette Conversations with Mike Jacobs. Has it kind of set into you yet that you're the head football coach at Toledo?
It's getting there, right? Like we head coaches can't go on the road in the spring, and we're a little bit back to normal with only one portal. So as we settle in and my family's here and we get into a bit of a rhythm, it's certainly becoming more real by the day.
What do you think of the RBA Corvette here, by the way?
This thing's sick. It's the first time I've ever been in one. My uncle had a couple of different ones.
Okay.
He had like a 50th anniversary one, but this thing's pretty awesome.
Yeah, the bosses just kind of let me drive this thing around and pray.
Drive it like we stole it or rented it, right?
Pray that I don't crash it. Is the whole goal here. Okay,
Yeah.
like so you got through spring ball. What do you think of what your team looked like? The first chance that you really got to go out and practice with those guys.
Yeah, I think without any, other than watching film, but with everybody having relatively new rosters, it's hard to know what the rest of the conference looks like. But all we can control is us. I felt like we got a ton done. Obviously, 3 full new systems installed, fair amount of carryover in our defensive stuff. But I thought the kids worked hard. It was competitive. The framework to be a good team is there. This doesn't look like a team that's only been together for 3.5 months, just from a pace of practice, being on task, the urgency from drill to drill. So again, I'm strongly encouraged by what we saw, but man, we got light years to go still before we play that first game up at Michigan State.
The good news is you have plenty of time to get all those little, the little things that you want to get figured out. When you come into a new program and you take over and you're coming from Mercer and you come to Toledo, what's the first order of business? Like, what's the first thing that you want to put your stamp on?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we had a really short window here, and every job's a bit different, right? Like, you go into things with like a 90-day plan, right? It's like the first 90 days of a presidency, right? And so, the first thing is you got to try to get in front of every player on the roster that has the potential to return. You got to, in today's day and age, you got to sell your vision for what you see and what you expect the program to look like and how they can fit in. It's not an exact science for whatever circumstance. You don't always get to every kid, but that's the goal. And then from there, it's assembling a staff. And at this level, one of the vital pieces is putting together the off-field staff. Certainly, the scouting department and the player personnel department are such a big piece of what we do nowadays.
What has maybe surprised you about this job that you didn't realize before you took it?
Obviously, growing up here, I knew that, there's all kinds of tradition and history with Toledo football. Tons of proud alumni. We had 6 decades represented. We did our first alumni gathering before the Friday night before the spring showcase. But I think what's blown me away is the amount of people that aren't necessarily Toledo graduates, but are Toledo people that are highly invested both financially and emotionally into the success of the university and Toledo athletics.
When did you think that maybe this was a reality that you could come back home? Because in this college football is so crazy. It's just an insane business that you've chosen to spend your life in. When did you think that this was like a possibility that you could come home and be the head football coach at a Division I school like this?
I've looked at Toledo for a long time, right? Like when you're coming up in coaching, this is one of those jobs you're like, man, like this is my hometown. All they do is win. I think the career winning percentage for just whoever that person was as the head coach at University of Toledo's like in the mid to low 60s, which is unheard of. And so, but Jason been here for a long time. His family was deeply entrenched and rooted in this. And so you just never knew. And frankly, we weren't necessarily, we listened to whoever calls, but my family was really happy in Macon, Georgia. We had started a great life. We had a supportive administration and president, and it was going to take something special like this to get us out of there. This courtship was short because there was other suitors at the time. As we had a bunch of success down there, and once this became a possibility, once I got in with the administration, really got a chance to meet Dr. Holloway, and at the time Ryan Blair and his team that was heading the search, it became pretty evident that this is really where I wanted to be and that we needed to be as a family.
You've got to do some pretty cool stuff already since you came back. I feel like every time I'm on social media, you're at a Rotary, or you're speaking to.
Listen, I was Shriners, Moose Club, Rotaries of all towns. We do it all, man. But it's more important than ever that people feel connected, right? Like,
sure.
As they feel less connected with the players in a transient college football world, I feel that the connection to the staff and, more importantly, the head coach, I think, is really critical. And I'm one of them, right? I grew up here, and so I think getting out and trying to meet as many people as I can, because listen, I left for college in 1997, and I really haven't lived back here since then. And so making those connections, reconnecting with people that are my age, that are now in the business world, I think is going to be critical to our success.
How much has Toledo changed in your mind since you left in 97 or whatever you said it was? How much has changed in this city, and how crazy is it to kind of see the transformation for somebody that grew up here and has been away and now you're back?
There's always those quintessential Toledo things, right? We talk about it, like the zoo, the riverfront, the things that have been so good for so long here, right? The art museum. What I think has really surprised not me as much, but the people that are on my staff that didn't know much about it or had never lived here, the guys that had followed us from Mercer that weren't necessarily from Ohio, is just how great of a place it is to live and raise a family, right? Like there's great shopping and grocery stores and amenities and things to do, not just in Toledo, but in an hour or two radius, that are really special, right? The school districts are fantastic here, and it is just such a great place to raise a family, from an affordability, a school district, and a livability, and really more than anything, what they've done with the downtown area, right? Like just continuing to build on the Fifth Third Field area, what they've been able to do with the walleye, and the amount of people that live, work, and function day to day in downtown, I think is really, probably been the biggest area of growth since when I left.
As we cross over from Toledo into Maumee, what kind of memories do you have just kind of growing up here as a kid in Maumee?
Listen, it was a great place to be raised. Like, I look back and I think of like my friends group and the people that were in the high school in and around my time, and the level of success that so many of them have had. And success looks different to everybody, but just doctors or lawyers or people running successful businesses, just generally having a great experience growing up. And I think when you are able to reflect, you realize just how special it was. And listen, man, like, we had a bunch of family in town, and like, being at my aunt and uncle's house for a bunch of the holidays, and my grandparents, and just kind of your quintessential upbringing, right? And so it brings back great memories.
I always tell people, like, I love telling people that I'm from Maumee.
Right.
Explain
how to say it and spell it, right?
Right, exactly. But there's just so many little quirks about this town, and like, you grow up playing Maumee Little League at Ford Field, and like that's like the thing that everybody.
Big deal. Grass infield.
Yeah.
Like the damn major league.
Yes, like when you're a kid, you're like, oh man, someday I'm gonna get to play on the big field at Ford Field, and it's gonna be awesome. Like, I remember that. Like, that was like always a big goal. There's just so many little things about this town that I love so much, and and the funny part is you look now and there's some of the same teachers that are still there at Maumee High School. Oh, yeah. The people that are well, the athletic trainer, I had like one week after the portal shut down where we could go out a little bit, and certainly stopped in to the high school, and I was sitting there talking to Cam, and sure enough, Kurt McClure came walking down the hallway, and I don't think I've seen Kurt for probably 20 plus years. So that was fun. All right, so as we're coming down towards River Road here, you and I both grew up coming to Penguin Palace. It looks much different than it did back in the
They
day.
had a fire or something.
Yeah,
right?
they did, and the Bucks they
that was like
bought
Miller
it.
Schwinn, right?
Yep,
They got
yep.
the first
The bike
there,
store,
the
yeah.
bike store.
Absolutely. And that's now the administration building, but was Fort Miami.
That's right.
Back in the day, and Fort Miami's now down that way.
Yeah. I was captain of the safety patrol at Fort Miami.
Were
in
you
my
really?
5th grade year. It was a big deal.
Ooh,
You had like not only did you have the orange
sash.
deal, you had like the color-coded badge.
Oh yeah, I did the same thing at Wayne Trail. I know what you're talking about. So all right, we're coming up to Penguin Palace. I called in a favor. How do you feel about us stopping at Penguin Palace here, and they're gonna let us go back and make our own Sundays? Like,
I mean, this is
that's
like my
not cool.
child. Yeah, it was like my childhood dream, right? This is fantastic. Thank you. Like literally my childhood.
Go sit out front just like we did when we were kids. How's that ice cream? When you made it, does it make it a little better that you made it?
Yeah, I think so. Like I'm
Yeah.
a little more attached to it emotionally. Like it's solid. I probably should put more candy in it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Being the Toledo football coach, what kind of sense of responsibility do you take being a guy from Northwest Ohio, knowing it's the University of Toledo and there's so many people that have their hands on this thing?
Yeah, I don't want to be the guy that screws it up, right? Like we when we interviewed, we talked about it. Like it's been so consistent and so good, and just a ton of respect for certainly what Jason was able to do here. Jason Candle was head coach, and Matt before him, and even Tim Beckman. And I think that just the responsibility to make sure that we not only uphold what it's been, but we push it forward. There's a tremendous amount of responsibility for me in that.
I know you've had a lot of talks with Jason Candle since you took over, just kind of conversations. What has that been like for him to kind of usher you in and kind of help you out a little bit, just getting to know the ropes maybe?
Yeah, Jason's been great, right? Like, certainly somebody that I have a ton of respect for, and there's not a lot of people in this business, right, that are doing the same thing, that have the same stressors, and somebody that's been here for 17 seasons in some capacity. He knows how everything functions. So, he's been a great reference point. If I've had questions, he's been very open about answering anything that I had. But, a lot of it's just checking into, and, it's not been a ton, but there's been enough as we were just getting rolling to get going, which is good.
All right, one more stop. We're going to head over to the high school. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's great.
Let's do it.
That's really hard to top, man. The fact that we led with Penguin Palace and we got to make our own.
Now that you've got spring ball down, like what do the next few months look like for you before you guys get into fall camp?
Yeah, so again, without the second portal window, like our coaches are all over, our recruiting area, trying to get live evals on as many guys as we could, right? Like, the previous staff had offered a fair amount of 27s and 28s, so sifting through and watching all that film, placing evaluations on kids, communicating with high school coaches, working to get kids up to camps, is a big piece of what we're doing right now, and kind of reintroducing the new staff to the state. The great news is a lot of these guys have been here and recruited folks in our geographic footprint, as well as our extended areas in Georgia and Florida, and and so that is really what's happening in May. With the way the schedule's gone and with official visits being in really late May, early June now, coaches will get a little bit of time off around Memorial Day, kind of regroup, regather, and then we'll pedal to the metal. We'll have couple official visit weekends, and again, late May and early June, we'll have a number of camps on campus. We'll work a number of other camps in an evaluative type role, as well as coaching, and then you get a little bit of time off those couple weeks in and around 4th of July time, and then we're really back at it. There's summer workouts and OTAs. Our players are in some discretionary time right now. for them to recharge and come back. Just wrapped up the academic semester, feel real strongly about how we did in the classroom. And so, we're just getting ready to start the next segment for the players, which is really, those summer workouts and Coach Barr, which is about an 8-week cycle.
So as we pull up to Kazmaier Stadium, what kind of memories flood back about your playing days at Maumee, and what kind of a player were you?
I like to think I was a pretty solid player. Obviously, like size-wise, I was a tweener, and that's why we looked at, my family had me look at everything: Division III, Division II, 1AA. Obviously decided to go the walk-on route to play for my dad at Ohio State. But as far as high school goes, man, I try to do stuff by example.
I've always had such good feelings and good memories every time. Go ahead. I've walked into this place. Like I always, as a kid, I grew up coming to all the games here.
Well, that's the thing. Like when you were in middle school, you'd wear your jersey. They'd let you in for free, and then you'd play like football over. Just past it over there. It was a hill at one point. I feel like
it has the same feeling that it has had forever, but it also is like you walk out here like, okay, this is way more legit than. There were some mud bowls that were played out on this place. Like,
for
you
sure.
get to Perrysburg week 10, and the snow's coming down. I remember like in 01, 02 or whatever it was, just an absolute mud bowl in the freezing cold against Perrysburg.
That's right.
But when you come back out here you kind of get the juices flowing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, again, just instantly back to like the 1.5-mile test, and like you can just think about, right? Like you used to line up at the flagpole and walk 2 by 2 in as you were like coming to the stadium, because obviously the main locker room facility was there off the aux gym, and so I mean, I listen. Again, I left in '97. We came and spent about 5 days with my mom this past summer because we had not brought the boys back in quite some time. And so we actually stopped out here and like took a photo. I'll have to have my wife send it to you, but took a photo but I had been back one other time, and that was for one of my brother's games. And I think Cody was a senior, maybe 2003. And so that was the last time I had been back, just because we're in the fall and we just don't get back a ton.
You went on to be a long snapper. How did that skill even come about? Because it's specialized.
Yeah, so listen, I'm not the biggest, right? And so, my mom's shorter, my dad's on the shorter side. I'm fortunate, I think I'm 6'1" on the greatest day of my life, but I was a bit of a tweener as an offensive lineman. And, in middle school, my dad's like, hey, listen, this is a skill you should learn because not many people can do it. And if you can do it, you can typically get a bus ticket, right? And so I learned how to do it at a young age. It was something I just kind of had a knack for and was good at, and that probably afforded me more opportunities than anything I did as an offensive lineman. But it was something I learned early, something I worked hard at, because I always felt like it would be, being a bit shorter, okay, I better have something that differentiates me from somebody else that's got all the size, height, weight requirements. And so I was always really big in the weight room, and then I learned how to long snap.
All right, last thing I'm going to ask you while you're out here. So you grew up getting to play in the Maumee-Perrysburg rivalry, you go play in the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry, and now you're part of Toledo Bowling Green, and you've had some other ones along the way. What have you learned about the Toledo Bowling Green rivalry since you became the head coach? How seriously people take it, how bad they want to beat Bowling Green?
Super seriously, right? We've been on the wrong end of that thing for a couple of years now, and I think recognizing that it is an important game, right? Like coaches either take two pass when they look at rivalry games. They try to say, hey, listen, this is a normal week. We got to function and just do our job and all the things. And then there's those coaches that say, no, man, this one's going to feel different. It's going to be a bit emotional. It's going to there's going to be more on the line, whether the records are close or whether it's actually for something. And I think recognizing that and not pretending that it's not a thing is really important.
I love it. I love it. Okay, I'll ask you this. As a guy who grew up over here, were you a Rudy's or a Tony Pacco guy?
You're going to get me in trouble.
I know I am.
By proximity, Rudy's.
Same thing.
Okay, because of proximity and where I lived, because, again, you got to remember, I worked at the Monettes on Glendale, and it literally was across the street. Now, love the Pacco dog, love the chili, but at the time, it really was only on the east side in the original location, right? Now, if I can ever figure out a way to get a bun on the wall, like I don't know, you know what I mean? And at some point, they even put one in at the Andersons in Maumee. There was like a grab and go kind of situation.
And there is a Pacos in Maumee now. Okay. There's a full Pacos location in Maumee, right by Meyer. But yeah, like.
Just different. And a lot of times I'd even get chili mac at Rudy's and not even like just the chili dog.
Oh yeah. I was the same way. Like growing up in South Toledo, Maumee area, like Rudy's was right here. Like that was what we did. I still go to Monette's. I bet you my dad spends more time at Monette's than he does at his own house. Oh, yeah. My dad is shopping in there every day.
And I believe it was in 2006, Purdue played, I was on the staff at Purdue, we played at Toledo to open the season. And Joe Tiller had the director of football operations bring in a bunch of Rudy's hot dogs for like his version of team. Like we didn't give it to the kids; it was like for the coaches, right?
That's awesome.
I think they were, I was fired up about it. Everybody else was like, "Meh, it's a chili dog," right? But it's how you remember things as much as what they really are, and again, another Toledo guy.
Yeah, Joe Tiller's a Northwest Ohio guy. So what did you do when you worked at Monette's? What kind of stuff did you do?
Yeah, so Mark, right? The father started it. Mark and his brother each had a shop at one point. Mark, I believe, is the youngest. And it's funny, I ran into him at an entrepreneur meetup on campus and got to reconnect with he and his mother. But they had bought this location here in Glendale. A couple gals that I'd gone to high school with, and one of my friends that was a St. John's guy worked out here. They're like, hey, he's hiring. You can get a fair amount of hours. You could do it year round, where like it was kind of seasonal work if you were working at the golf course. So I came out here. So you always had to start off in the back, right? They used to drive the trucks up to Detroit to buy all the produce, right? Because at the time it was only produce and flowers. Yeah. They've since, they got all the deli meats and all the, I think they do some bread and stuff now. I mean, they got all kinds of stuff. It's almost like a full grocery. But back in the day, then they'd make these crazy displays. They still do, with like the big pyramids and whatnot. And I mean, it looks fantastic, but you're rite of passage where you start off like breaking down all the cardboard boxes and then taking them to the back. And then there's no compressor. It was my body weight. So you'd get into the dumpster and like jump the cardboard down, come in, obviously wash up, and then whatever they needed, right? And then as you worked there for quite some time, you were able, they started teaching you how to build out the displays and what to look for and how to do it and how to run the register. And listen, Mark was really good, man. It was like a family. Like people would come back and work there in the summers, and they were really, really good people to work for as high school students.
All right, so we're pulling back into campus here. I'm taking you back to Larimer. I appreciate you doing this. This was a lot of fun.
It's been a ton of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, this was great. And go down memory lane a little bit. We get to go back and live out our childhood dreams of working at Penguin Palace. But no, this is great. And just kind of give people an idea. When they come out and watch the Toledo football team this year, what can they expect?
Listen, they're going to get a team that plays extremely hard, that plays together for one another, that's disciplined in what we do, that's physical and gritty, and that they should be proud. It mimics what this city's been built off of: hard work, determination, and we hope to have those characteristics, and we will have those characteristics when we play each and every Saturday and or Wednesday.
Or Maction, yeah, when it's freezing cold.
That's right.
You just never, it doesn't matter, your game will travel. I appreciate you. Thanks, man. This was fun.
Absolutely. I had a blast. Thanks, Jordan.